Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III, joined by the producer extraordinaire, often imitated, never duplicated, the real J Mac, ladies and gentlemen. And we are ready to rock and roll with today's edition of the program. At this very moment, many of you, if not most of you, are making your transition from your part-time jobs where you generate an income to your full-time jobs where you cultivate an outcome. And as you do so, I want to remind you to do it with intentionality, understanding the primacy that God places on family and allowing that primacy to govern, to guard, and to guide your engagement in your own homes. We will never, as a society, out-politic, out-vote, out-litigate, out-Supreme Court opinion, frankly, even out-church the deficiencies that abound in the home. If we would welcome God to grasp a hold of us within our familial units, if husbands would love their wives as Christ loved the church, if wives would submit themselves to their own husbands, which, as you've heard me say numerous times, it's not a generally applicable notion to males in general. It's a covenantal, specified investment of one's life in commitment, covenantal commitment. And if husbands and wives would set as their lives' priority to rear the children that God blesses them with, to rear them in his nurture and admonition. Guys, if these things happen, we would see a radical transformation of our society. I am not naive or unaware of the reality of the circumstances that we live in, the prevalence of broken families. I understand that reality that we live in, but guys, our experiences do not give us the wherewithal to change God's standards. In actuality, it highlights the great costs, the great suffering that we endure as a result of rejecting God's way. But if we would welcome him to grasp a hold of us within our familial units, and our familial units will be comprised of transformed people who have been born again by the power of God, by grace through faith, we would see the very thing that we want to see. A lot of the conversations that we're having is the byproduct of the fruit of the problem, not the root. Not the root of the problem. You know, I often, talk about different things, and I mentioned, lots of conversations, especially with Venezuela in the news and all, and drug trafficking. Why is there such a high demand for drug consumption, illegal drug consumption in our country? Why is there such a high demand for that? Scripture talks about the depravity of the human heart. The human heart has to be addressed, and that is something that politics is insufficient to address, which is why the gospel must be proclaimed. Must be proclaimed. Christ followers must commit ourselves to obeying our Lord and executing his commission. And if we would welcome him to transform us individually and to grasp a hold of us within our families, we could see a radical transformation of America within one generation, by the way. It wouldn't take as long as people think it would take. That's where the rubber meets the road. So as you're making your transition to your full-time jobs right now, from your part-time jobs, my encourage and challenge, frankly, is to do so with intentionality. There are lots of things that are happening just like you. I have a family, I have a wife, I have children, 6 of them. I got a 6-pack. But there's no greater responsibility that my wife and I have than to rear our children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Paying the bills is not more important. Making groceries, that's what we call it in New Orleans. Y'all may call it grocery shopping. But in New Orleans, we say making groceries. You know, we mad at me? I'm just telling you. It's the most important thing we can do, guys. And the Lord is sovereign over the makeup of our families. The Lord is sovereign over our life stages. And it is vitally important for us to recognize that. Now, to the word of God we go. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11 is where we're going to go. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11 is where we're going to go. This is wisdom literature. I was talking to actually my brother not too long ago about the book of Ecclesiastes, and it actually follows the arc and the downward trend, if you will, of Solomon's life. But in the earlier phases, you have more potent expressions of God's wisdom through Solomon versus the evidences of Solomon's being overrun by his sin. That's indicative, as that's reflected in latter portions of this book. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11, Solomon proclaims a vital and profound truth. And this is going to harken back to something we discussed earlier this week. In Ecclesiastes 3, verse 11, it says, God has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the hearts of men. Yet so that man cannot understand what God has done from the beginning to the end. I want to explain what Solomon is saying there. And I guess I'll start with the latter portion. I'll the first portion first, and then the latter portion. Solomon proclaims the truth that God has set eternity in the hearts of man. In the latter portion of this verse, when it says, yet so man cannot comprehend or understand fully what God has done from beginning to end, what Solomon is communicating, it is because God is eternal and man is made for eternity, that God has made it so that man cannot exhaust his capacity to understand God within our temporal setting, within our temporal context, which is why there's such yearnings and strivings. This is why humans, which we are made in the image of God as distinct from the animals, we ponder things like the purpose of life. We ponder things like, how did we get here? Why are we here? Existential questions. We ponder things about how did the universe come to be? These are all reflections of the truth that Solomon communicated, that God has set eternity in the hearts of men. Now, I mentioned earlier this week, we were talking about this, that first and foremost, truth is transcendent, objective, immutable, meaning it does not change, and it is enduring. And we are in a current cultural climate where people, but especially younger people, as a departure from kind of some of the trends that had transpired, where younger people are starting to yearn for more enduring facets in society, that they've been exhausted by the rapid transient causes. I mean, we ran from, you talking about Obergefell, same-sex marriage needs to be protected by the courts, and now you're talking about transgenderism? 2-year-olds know whether or not they're born in the wrong bodies, and that happened in a blink of an eye. You know, rejecting biblical truth, embracing critical theory, which has its subset queer critical theory, critical race theory, and feminist theory. All of these are subsets of critical theory. And now all of a sudden you mean to tell me, what, because I'm a man, I'm toxic? These things have been rapid changes just in the previous generation. What do you want to be when you grow up, Tommy? I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be, I want to help those. And now some of the same qualities that will cause Tommy to be those things, now they're toxic. These rapid changes, these rejections of societal norms, but I want to remind you that I don't refer to these things as societal norms solely because they're norms. The societal norms are reflections of enduring truth. This is why I reject the idea of referring to traditional marriage. God's definition of marriage is salient and applicable today as it has always been, not because of traditions. No. Mankind has built traditions around the truth that God authored. This is why I simply talk about marriage or biblical marriage. I don't need a qualifier because God, as the designer of marriage, is its lone definer. Well, the reason why there are traditions in this regard is because the traditions have followed man's adherence to truth. But with these changes and people, I said it earlier this week, people, they watch that show Sex and the City and they tried that out. And now we have an increasing number of older, professionally accomplished, unmarried women who are realizing, man, this is not what I signed up for. I regret not giving more attention to building a life and building a family in my younger years because now I'm J.D. Vance's cat lady. No shade to cat owners out, by the way. But y'all get what I'm saying. You have younger men, who have kind of been pushed to the margins of society. And I'm like, man, we're tired of this. We're tired of it. The reason for this, guys, this is what I want everybody to understand. Because if we reduce this merely to political machinations, we're missing the forest for the trees. We're missing the forest for the trees. What we're experiencing is people realizing that Ecclesiastes 3:11 is true. God has set eternity in the hearts of men. God has made us in the foundation of who we are to know that we were made for more than what is temporal. We were built for more than what is merely tangible. We were actually created for something beyond ourselves. I call that the God void. And you have people all over that try to fill the God-sized void with all kinds of alternatives and counterfeits. And it's just like, and I use this analogy often, it's when you're hungry, but you try to respond to that hunger with a bag of Skittles. And guess what's going to happen? Immediately, the Skittles may taste good initially. You might get a sugar rush, but in about a good 10, 15 minutes, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be hungry again. But because you've consumed something that is incapable of satisfying the truth of the longing. The truth of the longing. And the truth of the longing, that the hunger is driven by your body's cells requiring nutrients for sustenance. But when it's offered a counterfeit instead of the nutrients for sustenance, it not only is unsatisfying, but you continue that process. It won't happen all at once, but you continue that over time, then you end up with chronic obesity and things of that nature. God has set eternity in the hearts of men. And then the latter part of this verse, so that mankind cannot find out what God has done from beginning to end. God has set eternity in the hearts of men. Mankind ponders broad, wide, existential questions. We have minds that ponder things like destiny and ponder things that are of an eternal scale. But we've been hardwired in such a way, and God has fixed our universe in such a way and made us in such a way that we'll never be able to exhaust those queries in a temporal disposition. And so I know there are many young people who listen to this show and watch this show, and I want to say to you, that longing that you sense, that itch that you feel, that wondering and that longing for something bigger and greater than yourself that is beyond your temporal station, that is something that God has put in you. But here's the fact. Here is a fact. That longing will only be satisfied in Christ. The longing will only be satisfied in knowing your Creator, the lover of your soul, the one who donned human flesh, invaded human history to make for himself a people when there was no people. This is why the need to respond to the gospel is far more immediate than you could ever imagine. Because once you have the eternal longings of your soul satisfied in Christ, it transforms your entire outlook on life. And responding to that call is not solely about one's outlook on life. It fixes you with an eternal hope, an eternal anchor. And because of that eternal reality, it then provides all manner of meaning for life on this side of eternity. God has set eternity in the hearts of man. Refuse to fill the God void with counterfeit substitutes.
A Discipleship Minute with Joseph Parker.
Genesis is a wonderful, powerful, and supernatural book. It's the book that begins to answer our questions about God. People ask many questions about life, real questions that they wish to get answers for. Questions such as, where did we come from? Who created us? Who created the world? Who created the universe? What is the purpose of life? These are only a few of many legitimate questions that people often ask. If you'd ask many scientists in our culture today, what are some of your main goals and what is your purpose in studying science? We're trying to find out who we are and where we came from. The Word of God has answers, many, many answers. It's God's Word that gives us answers to all of our questions. He, of course, has answers that no one else would even begin to have.
What if healthcare could be more than bills and bureaucracy? What if it could reflect faith, foster community, and offer spiritual support? At Redeem HealthShare Ministry, the mission goes beyond medical bills. It's about honoring Christ and embracing healthcare that aligns with Christian values. Redeem members share medical expenses through monthly contributions, supporting one another in a Christ-centered community. It's not insurance, it's believers helping believers through financial support and prayer. And Redeem HealthShare provides freedom for members to select the doctors, hospitals, and treatments that are right for them. No networks, no restrictions, just faith-driven care. From everyday checkups to unexpected medical emergencies, Redeem offers flexible programs and encouragement rooted in Scripture. Because your healthcare should reflect your faith, not compromise it. More at redeemhealthshare.org.
Candace talks about finding out she was pregnant. Thankfully, an ultrasound provided by Preborn allowed her to hear her baby's heartbeat.
The sonogram sealed the deal for me. My baby was like this tiny little spectrum of hope. And I saw his heart beating on the screen. And knowing that there's life growing inside, that sonogram changed my life. I went from just Candace to mom. Thank you to everybody that has given these gifts. You guys are giving more than money. You guys are giving love.
Preborn currently has clinics that do not have ultrasound machines. Would you consider a leadership gift and sponsor a machine today? These life-saving machines cost $15,000, more than most centers can afford. Your donation will save countless lives for years to come. Dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/AFR.
Shining light into the darkness. This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. Abraham Hamilton III here. Well, guys, we're already here. Next week, we will be in South Haven, Mississippi at Tabernacle South Haven Church's Leadership Summit. That will be January 15th through the 17th. We'll be there. Looking forward to this time. The pastor there, Bishop Vincent Matthews, is a man of conviction and vision. It's amazing how the Lord has moved him and utilized him in building his kingdom. Bishop Matthews and his wife were full-time missionaries in South Africa for a decade, and then the Lord brought them back home, and the Lord is doing amazing things through him and the church family there in South Haven. And so I'm delighted to be able to join them next week. You are welcome to attend the Leadership Summit. You simply have to go to tabsouthaven.org. That's the website, tabsouthaven.org, for all of the information you need, and you can be in the space. If you're in the area, willing to come to the area, I'd love to see you there. And then in February, we'll be in Simsboro, Louisiana, North Louisiana, at Simsboro Baptist Church, first FBC Simsboro's Family Focus Weekend. All right, this is going to be an amazing weekend where I'll have the privilege of ministering quite a bit there. And my wife, actually, will be doing a session for the wives and the women at the church. It's going to be an amazing time. The event, there is no charge at all for the event, but the family at Simsboro is asking for everyone to register because they will provide food for attendees. And so they need to get an accurate count of who all is there so they can provide the right amount of food. To register, you simply have to go to fbcsimsboro.org, click on the events tab. When you hit the events tab, you'll see Family Focus Weekend. That is where you register to let the people at Simsboro Baptist Church know you are coming. And I would love to see you there if you're in that area or willing to come to that area. These are going to be amazing events. I'll continue to mention these throughout the year. We'll be working on some stuff, maybe another website, so you can keep up with all the goings on, because we have a lot of stuff happening in 2026. We thank God for it, because we must work while it is day. So please, if you're in those areas or willing to come to either of those areas, we'd love to see you there. You're welcome to do so. All right. I have in studio with me, you already know, my favorite guest of all time. I actually came across a show that we did in 2019. We were still on Urban Family Talk and AFR. And it was actually my wife's second time being on the air at that time. Remember that? Yes. She had the short haircut. And it's like, wow, time has flown. That time has flown. But I wanted to have you to join me in studio here today, because the world really is reacting to, some portions of the world is reeling, other portions of the world is rejoicing.
Yes.
As a result of what's happened in Venezuela over the weekend, where Nicolas Maduro became Maduro Frío.
Muy frío.
Muy frío. As he had to go to the NYC to stand charges under the indictments there. Now, to kind of set up this conversation, I want to mention this. So I've been talking extensively about the fact that Venezuela has not always been a Marxist country.
Yeah.
It followed Hugo Chavez's election in 1998. And then he passed away in 2013, and Nicolas Maduro became his successor, if you will. So it's just been 26 years that Venezuela's been a Marxist state. The nation was the fourth wealthiest country in the world in the 1950s, in the world. But in short order, 26 years, it's gone to the place to where people in the nation were starving. And as a result of the Marxism taking over, the tyranny, the murder, the Gestapo-like tactics we were talking at home about, man, you can't even have a cell phone there if you do the what is it called?
Colectivos.
The colectivos. That's funny. They call the goon squad the collectives.
Yeah.
Ain't that something? They even go through your phones and put people in jail and kill people, all these kind of things. But following the Marxist takeover, it's also led to a massive humanitarian crisis, to where a full third of the Venezuelan population has left the country. And estimates, the numbers have been put, and I've been looking at this, anywhere between 8 and 10 million people have left the country. And to put this in context, in order for a third of the American population to move elsewhere, you're talking about upwards of 60 million people.
Yeah.
So just to give you kind of an idea of what that is. And I just want to read off some of these statistics, because you'll find some data in different places. But according to The Guardian, they put the number of Venezuelans who have migrated to Colombia at 2.8 million to Colombia, 1.6 million to Peru, 1.16 million to the United States, and that includes Puerto Rico, which is relatively close to Venezuela, 728,000 in Chile, 626,000 to Brazil, 518,000 to Spain. All of these numbers, it's over this. I'm not giving you dollars and cents. So it's like for Colombia, it's 2,856,123, right? Yeah. So I'm kind of getting out of the dollars and cents. But 489,000 to Ecuador, and I'm doing this in order of the largest population of Venezuelans to the smallest. 223,000 to Argentina, 124,000 to the Dominican Republic, 110,000 to Mexico, 102,000 to Portugal, 94,000 to Panama, 64,000 to Italy, 41,000 to Uruguay.
Muy bien, Uruguay.
31,000 to France. All right. So it's remarkable to me having that understanding. 8 to 10 million people have left the country as a result of that. A pretty significant, thousands upon thousands in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, it's in the thousands.
What have you seen? Because you are my plug into the Spanish-speaking world. what have you seen around the world, and I would guess starting in Puerto Rico, in terms of the reaction to what President Trump has done, the Trump administration has done in turning Nicolas into Maduro Frio?
Yes. So because of the large number of Venezuelans in the diaspora, so particularly in Puerto Rico, there's a couple thousand, and so there's an organization called La Coalición por Venezuela, which is Coalition for Venezuelans in the diaspora. And so there's a chapter in Puerto Rico, and they were talking about how on January the 3rd, when everybody woke up to the great news, I mean, they ran in the streets. I mean, it was celebration. There was flags everywhere. And you have a lot of Puerto Ricans who are also, understanding and knowing and supporting the Venezuelans who are finally able to even consider a free Venezuela, right? So they understand, a lot of them understand that it's not an immediate freedom that they can all return back right now. But the fact that there is like a glimmer of hope where now this murderer has been able to be taken out by the strongest force in the world, they're rejoicing. They ran the streets. I mean, they're going crazy in Puerto Rico. Now, there's a couple of crazy leftists, socialists within Puerto Rico who are coming out protesting against the arrest, or the extradition, whatever we're going to call it. And so there's that. There's always those crazy fews that are really loud. But the Venezuelans all over the world are rejoicing. And
there's like one guy you and I talk about him is Augustin Laje, and he to describe, and I wouldn't say he's necessarily a Christian, but he certainly is conservative, and I believe he is Argentinian,
yes,
and ethnically, but he lives in Spain. But he has a passion to see Central and South America turn away from these Marxist, frankly, Marxist-leaning and inclinations.
Yes.
And has been really trying to offer information and data and content to aid in that process. You mentioned that there are some leftists who are upset, but in terms of the ratio, what ratio have you seen in terms of, has it been a majority or half that are upset, or is it pretty much the overwhelming response is most of the Spanish-speaking world is celebrating this, and there are a few?
Yeah, it's the few for sure. It's a few. It's the loud minority. It's what we see in the United States too. You have the extreme leftists, liberals that love communism and love like Mamdani. I mean, they're extreme, and so but they're fewer. They're just loud. And it's similar. It's just in a smaller quantity in the smaller countries in the Western Hemisphere, right? So you have the countries that are ran by socialists, right? Venezuela was one, Cuba, Nicaragua, Colombia, and then you have a lot of them that have embraced freedom and democracy. But definitely, even within the countries where the dictators are running, the socialist, communist dictators are running the country, the people are crying out. The majority of the people want freedom. We have been built by God to desire freedom. The majority of the people want freedom, which is why you see the streets in the United States and everywhere else of Venezuelans celebrating, because they realize, okay, we have suffered enough. They are literally not in their country because of the misery that they lived, and experienced. So they're celebrating. The majority is celebrating for sure.
Now, one of the facts that came out is that Nicolas Maduro had a personal, basically like bodyguard, and a pretty large contingent of them were Cuban. And one of the things that has been kind of exposed for the world to come to learn is just how deep and broad Cuban influence in Venezuela has been, in addition to Iranian and Chinese and Russian. But there are many Cubans who have, by God's grace, made it out of Cuba, but their heart is for Cuba. And they have been reacting to this as well. What have some of those reactions been?
Yeah. So first, in regards to Venezuela, though, we have to be honest about this because the leftist media is spinning it differently. The number,
spinning it in English-speaking media, or spinning it in
everywhere,
Spanish,
in English and Spanish, yeah.
Okay.
Where they're saying that America has taken over Venezuela and we're trying to just conquer it, right? And the reality is that the Cubans during Chavez, right, have gradually taken over Venezuela. Like, they are running the show in Venezuela. Majority of their military is comprised of Venezuelans. 32 of them died.
Comprised of Cubans?
I'm sorry, excuse me, of Cubans. Yes, thank you. Of Cubans, 32 of them died that were right there in protecting, if
the
you
compound.
will. Yeah. So Cuba has always had their fingers very deep in Venezuela. I'm learning that now. I didn't,
Communist Cuba.
Communist Cuba, yeah, for sure. So when the leftist media says that America now is coming to conquer them or to take over Venezuela, really it's the opposite. We are freeing them from communist rule beyond the Venezuelan borders. Like we have countries, particularly Cuba, and there's interviews right now that I'm seeing where you have back in the early 2000s, Maduro being interviewed saying, are there Cubans, socialist, communistic Cubans, in the military and in power in Venezuela? He's like, no. We're all Venezuelans. And coming to find out now, when it's all uprooted or we're starting to uproot it.
And expose.
We're seeing a lot of Cuban communist, revolutionaries, if you will, that have been taking over Cuba Venezuela. And then we're seeing, because of that, the petróleo in Spanish, but like the oil being managed by the communist Cubans in Venezuela, selling it to our enemies in our hemisphere, right?
Selling it to America's enemies.
Yes, to America's enemies, correct. Yeah, Iran and China and Russia. And so the left is spinning it to their advantage. But in reality, what is happening is that there is freedom that is coming to the people. Now, is America going to have a say in it? Yes. But the Venezuelans that I have heard, I have been watching it, and every Venezuelan that I have seen is rejoicing at the fact that President Trump and the United States military and Marco Rubio are coming in and helping them not only extract the oil, but also manage it so that the Venezuelan people can actually take advantage of it, because they have not been in the last 26 years.
And that's actually what happened when Venezuela was the fourth wealthiest country in the world.
And so then the Cubans now, the free Cubans in the United States and everywhere else, and even the Cubans within the island, are rejoicing that Cuba's next. Like they're like wanting freedom. They're actually, it's so funny. There's a lot of comedians going around that are Cuban that are like, we have oil. Look, there's oil. Because they're like, please come. Like, what benefit can we give y'all so y'all can come and get this man out, Diaz-Canel. So yes,
that's funny.
Like you're talking about, you have the American liberal media spinning it completely opposite of what the people on the ground who are actually and have been living in this type of horrible circumstances, they're rejoicing. And because they're like, please come. You want the oil? Come. We have oil. Like, please. And so because they want freedom. And it's been far too long where families have been destroyed because of this.
One of the things that has come out, especially with I've seen Venezuelans all over the world, but especially those here in the United States of America, them saying that they're eager to return to
rebuild
Venezuela, to rebuild it. Is that a sentiment in the Spanish-speaking media? Is that a sentiment that you found to be repeated frequently, or is that kind of a one-off kind of idea?
Yeah, no, it is. So
it is what?
That it is that they're wanting to return. A lot of them want to return. There are a lot of them that have been born in the United States that have made a life here and have their degrees here and everything, and so it would be difficult, maybe even harder for them to return to rebuild because they would have to start over from scratch. So a lot of them that are have been here for many decades, even beyond Chavez, like beyond the 26 years.
Prior to Chavez's election.
Yeah, and that even have had children here. Those probably won't go back, right? And hopefully those are the ones that are naturalized and they become citizens, right? But you have those that have come the last 10 years, on 13 years under Maduro, because Maduro made it worse than Chavez, right? It got successively worse. That's what happens with communism. And so you have those that have come recently wanting to return. But here's the thing. They have to return after the 3 phases that Marco Rubio said are going to happen, right? Like at the end, they can't return right now because there's still a lot of oppression.
You are watching or listening to the Hamilton Corner. My guest is none other than Mrs. Maria Hamilton. We're having a conversation about the response in Spanish-speaking countries, including in the U.S. territory of Puerto Rico, to the news of Nicolas Maduro's capture. And when we come back from this break, I want to ask a question of you, because you and I discussed an interview of a father and son who are Venezuelans, but they have been living in Puerto Rico for quite some time, and talking a bit about the history. I wanted to ask you to share some of the insights from their on-the-ground experiences that may be enlightening for our audience here. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
America is about to celebrate her 250th birthday. In the beginning of our country, almost all American children were raised with a Christian worldview. That has drastically changed over the last 250 years. What's your opinion on what we can do to restore it? Your thoughts and your support will help us fight for our kids, and we'll give you the DVD Educated for Liberty with Stephen McDowell as our thanks. Visit afa.net/educate today. afa.net/educate.
When God allows something difficult in your life, you could look at it as his gift to you. Here's Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth.
If our way is perverse before God, what a mercy it is when God sets out to oppose us in that way.
God's way of getting your attention on the next Revive Our Hearts with Nancy DeMoss Wolgemuth.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join MediShare and save even more than usual. For many families, joining MediShare means saving about $500 a month, which is a game changer for a lot of people. More than 1 million people are now part of healthcare sharing because it just makes so much sense, especially right now. And MediShare is the gold standard. Members like it a lot. We know this from member surveys. MediShare has been around for over 30 years. It is a proven thing. And if you join before January 15th and you mention the promo code SHARE, they'll waive your application fee, so you save $100 right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call. You'll get a price within 2 minutes. And again, the deadline is January 15th, so call now. You'll save even more. Here's the number. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE, 833-44-BIBLE.
Biblical marriage in America was once considered sacred, even according to the law.
Marriage itself, one man and one woman, with legal enforceable duties towards their children, had a structure that reflected a Judeo-Christian tradition, and that was enforced in law.
Laws used to be based on religion and morality, but what about today?
Religion and morality have almost become this toxic word that you can't talk about in government, right? Anything religious and moral, that's just going to have to be the churches.
In the next AFA at Home, Walker Wildman and his guests take an in-depth look at strategies that will help restore state authority over marriage and morality.
That was the standard. That was the norm. Rule. That was the norm for most of the history of our country, and the court's given us an opportunity to return to that.
Catch Episode 8 of AFA at Home when it hits AFA Stream on January 8th. You can watch it free for 1 week. After that, it'll be available exclusively at the Great Commission partner level. Set up your free account today at stream.afa.net.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential, and we will help you find healing. 866-482-LIFE.
The Hamilton Corner podcast and 1-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner. Abraham Hamilton III here along with my lovely wife. And I do mean lovely.
Hey.
My heart still skips a beat when you walk in the room. It's true. We're having a conversation about the response around the world, particularly in the Spanish-speaking portions of the world, to the news of Nicolas Maduro's arrest and removal from Venezuela, or some people might challengingly say Venezuela.
Please don't. Please don't.
But before the break, I mentioned there was this interview that actually the Venezuelan gentleman, the father and son, were interviewed actually by Puerto Rican interviewers.
Yes.
And they had been living in Puerto Rico, and they were sharing a bit of the history because they lived through, the father and son lived through the transition the transition of Venezuela from freedom into Chavismo.
Yes.
And so what are some of the things you would like for the audience here to understand that are important for them to understand from their firsthand experience of that transition.
So it was really interesting to see that because the father lived through before Chavez, and he explained the previous two presidencies, democratically elected presidents before Hugo Chavez, and then in the transition into
And it's
Maduro.
important to remember that Chavez was elected democratically as well.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And
But
just like Mamdani was elected democratically in New York City, just like that, because we have a population of people who are ignorant and easily manipulated. That's not to excuse them. It's just the reality. And so, but the father experienced it, and it was really interesting to see his take on it. He was a lawyer in Venezuela and was able to provide a pretty comfortable life before communism took over. And then he had to flee, and they actually left to go to Puerto Rico, which is the closest American territory to them. And they arrived 2015, 2016.
So relatively recent.
Yes, yeah, because again, the majority of the Venezuelans that left within the last 10 years. And so
let's just pause and underscore that for people. So the majority of the 8 to 10 million Venezuelans that have fled the country, they have left within the last 10 years.
Yeah, I know for sure in Puerto Rico there were about 200-ish Venezuelans before 2016, and then after that we're in the thousands, just because Puerto Rico's small, right? But then even you can multiply that by a lot more when you to consider other countries. But so this man and his son, are explaining what led to we're done, we have to leave. So first they're living in the country, comfortable life. They're okay, Chavez gets elected, and it's never, overnight. So it's a gradual taking over and confiscating not only properties, but taking over independent corporations, taking over independent or even like organizations that were working with the state, if you will, but then they take it over under the state fully, So then they start doing that, and then they start Cuba starts coming in, and you start having the colectivos. The colectivos is really just thugs. It's Cuban people who Fidel Castro and Raúl Castro end up sending over there to be the hands and feet of the state or the government in the streets of Venezuela. And so you have these colectivos that come and check and just come into your house, and you have to pretty much prove that you are not of the oposición, the opposition, right? You have to prove and show that you are not having any text messages with anybody talking about anything that has to do with anything that is in disagreement with Chavez and anything that he's putting forth. Same with Maduro. And so they had one time they came in, and this is the thing. It's not like police comes in and just kind of like goes through your... No, these are thugs. These are people with weapons. Again, the same thing started happening where they started taking and confiscating weapons and even setting up armerias, which is a place where you go and you willingly and voluntarily give up your arms because, we are a nation where we are a nation of peace, and we don't want, to come against each other, and we don't want crime. And so everybody wants voluntarily, except for the military and except for the people in power, right?
And the colectivos.
So the colectivos come in with their weapons, tie them up because they're thugs, right? So they tie them up, and they end up taking everything, like all their possessions, their TVs, anything of value, they take it. They end up taking their vehicle too. And that's the first time. So they moved from their home in the country where that happened, because it wasn't just in the cities that the collectivos were operating. In the country, they moved to an apartment that they didn't want to move into because it is in the city. And then there, they start having the same thing. Collectivos coming into their home, holding them at gunpoint. The son was hit in the head with a gun.
Pistol whipped.
Yes. And so then in the streets, people try to come out to protest, and then they start killing them. And so that happened 2 times, and then the third time the dad said, "I got to get out of here."
This is in this father's experience. This
personal
happened,
experience, correct? And
twice.
so,
and the third time it happened, that's when he.
Well, the second time it happened, he didn't want a third time to happen.
So he
said, "I'm not going to wait till the third time. We're leaving." And so they went to Puerto Rico.
Did he talk about how they were able to leave?
No, he did not.
And the challenges.
It had to be. Yeah, it had to be difficult. I don't know exactly. Probably illegally and all that, but it's unfortunate. They came to Puerto Rico. He's a lawyer, y'all. He's a lawyer. He comes to Puerto Rico, and he's a roofer now. Yeah. Because that's what happens. You can't, you come into a country, whether it's legally or illegally, honestly, a lot of the times, the certifications and the degrees and everything do not carry over. So you have to start from scratch. So he's like, you have to reinvent yourself. This is not, it's a matter of life and death. It's not. And guys, we are not condoning illegal immigration, okay? We are not. I don't agree with it at all. I understand it, but I don't agree with it. There has to be a process where you allow, even if it is where you allow when they come in illegally, and you have to go through the process. So,
and let me just say this.
Yeah.
when you say it has to be, I would say very plainly, no one has a right to migrate to another country. You don't have a right to come to the United States of America. If the United States of America decides it's within our best interest to have immigration policy, then we have the wherewithal to apply that policy or to say we need to put a moratorium on that, which frankly, I think our country needs a moratorium on all immigration for a time period to allow us to recalibrate our own society to get back in a healthy footing. But that's the conversation for another day.
But it's coming back to me now because he did say that he applied for refugee status and he was approved by the U.S. government in Puerto Rico.
So probably a refugee or asylum, some
yes,
combination
asylum.
of
So,
those.
but here's the thing: we have that in place. Like the American, it's not perfect, but we do have a system in place for allowing people to come or accepting them to come if they are able to prove that they're not going to be criminals here and they have a history in their own country. But they're being persecuted, and that is exactly what happened with this family. So they came, but he had to reinvent himself. So now he's a roofer, and he's lived in for these 6 years, well 10 years now. I'm sorry,
10 years.
Because he came 2016, the son came 2015. So 10 years now, built a business in Puerto Rico. But so yeah, he was rejoicing, and they're Christians too. And so you know what? They were persecuted Christians.
Yes.
In Venezuela.
Yes.
That's what he applied for as a asylum seeker. Anyway, but that's the reality on the ground. So then when you hear that President Trump, which it wasn't him, but the Delta Force came in and took this man out. And again, remember, he took him out, and the government of Venezuela, because it was not Trump who put Delcy Rodriguez in place. It was the government of Venezuela, because again, we complain about the United States coming in as tyrants and wanting to conquer, but in reality, we could have done way more. We could have taken Delcy, we could have taken Diosdado, we could have taken Padrino, we could have taken all those people that are in cahoots with Maduro. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, I know who those people are, but the audience may not know who
these
those people
are. Leadership. These are communist leaders in the government of Venezuela that have been running Venezuela along with the Cubans for many, many years.
And so Delcy was the one who was named as a vice president previously, and the Venezuelan government is now elevating her to the status of president.
Right, but the liberal American media has been saying that Trump put her in place to say, what are they saying? They're spinning it to say Americans don't care for Venezuelans. They just want the oil. So as long as they get the oil through Delcy Rodriguez, then the Venezuelan people are going to still be under a dictatorship, and it doesn't matter because who cares about the Venezuelans? That is not true. That is not what Marco Rubio and President Trump are doing. And so, but Delcy has been put in place, right? Temporarily, and they keep saying interim, because she is interim, because she's part of phase one, because out of all of those people, she's the one that, even though she's a criminal alongside Maduro, she's the one that's now wanting to play.
To cooperate,
yes, they play, but cooperate, yes. She's the one that's like, okay, don't take me, please. I can work with you. And so they're working with her temporarily until she gets out of the way. And she's either going to get out of the way, like Maduro was given the chance, voluntarily, or you're going to be taken out. And so that is what the Venezuelan people want. That is what they've been crying out for help. And the father says, they come into your house, they lock you up, they put you in, they tie you up, they tie you up. You cannot move. You need help from the exterior. You need help from outside. He's like, that is what the Venezuelan people have been wanting. We have been taken into captive in our own country, unable to leave, unable to prosper, unable to do anything in regards to freedom. We need somebody from the outside in the United States, because we are in this hemisphere because of the Monroe Doctrine. They have come in, and they are glorifying God for it. They're praising the Lord.
He even provided, I'm sorry, he was a Christian who praising the Lord throughout. Right. He even provided a little bit of a history lesson.
Yes.
In explaining the need for external assistance when you've been subjugated by your own government. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, the concept of sovereignty. So they keep saying, we violated the sovereignty of the Venezuelans. And this man says, it's interesting because they keep saying sovereignty, but we have lost the sovereignty. The sovereignty belongs to the people of Venezuela. We have lost it. There is no sovereignty. There's no national agreement of leave us alone. We are one people in Venezuela. No, we are being oppressed by our own government. So,
and he even hearkened to the fact that when the United States of America in our founding era, when the USA founders were being oppressed by England, that the United States, actually, we had the aid of France in liberating ourselves from the English tyranny. And whenever there's been kind of tyrannical oppression, there's pretty consistently been external assistance provided to alleviate the subjugated peoples from that external oppression.
He gave the history of Simón Bolívar. So if you hear a lot of the dollar, the currency in Venezuela is called the Bolívar. So it's from Simon Bolivar, who was a freedom fighter that helped free a lot of countries in South America from Spanish rule. And he says even Simon Bolivar and his people needed the British to come help against the Spanish to free the peoples of South America. Likewise, the Americans needed France. So he's like, we needed help. There's no way we could have done it on our own. Guys, they didn't have weapons. They couldn't have planned a coup. And Hugo Chavez knew that, right?
Hugo Chavez says,
you don't need the weapons, because if I let you have weapons, you will come against me. And rightly so, right? So they could not have done it on their own. So glory to God that this has happened, but it has started. And honestly, I think it's being done in a very disciplined manner, because guys, we have the weaponry, we have the ability to go in and take over and make this, and conquer it like the olden days. We have the power to do that. We're not doing that because that's not right to do. It's not legal to do. So we're not doing that. So I think the three phases that Marco Rubio is explaining is gonna take place, and it's gonna take months and maybe even a couple of years. But I think it's the right way to go about it to help these people.
Now, I want to make a bit of a shift, because I began the program in Ecclesiastes 3 talking about eternity being set in the hearts of men. And earlier this week on the show, I was discussing the fact that younger Americans are beginning to express a desire to return to what some may say traditional norms and things of that nature, but it's a desire for truth that is transcendent and objective and immutable and enduring. And I'm immediately thinking about the NBC News poll that they took. They queried 2,970 American voters, specifically voters between the ages of 18 and 29, and how they divided them by female voters who voted for Cackling She Shall Never Be President, the remix, males who voted for the Cackler, females who voted for President Trump, and males who voted for President Trump. And the males who voted for President Trump were asked the question, which of the following is important to your personal definition of success? And the males, 18 to 29, said having children was number one for them.
Come on.
Was number one. Where females who voted for She Shall Never Be President said it was number 11. And even females who voted for President Trump ranked it at number 6.
Yeah.
So, man, we running out of show. But let me just toss this to you. What do you think is happening with these younger people, primarily men at this juncture, beginning to express a desire for something transcendent, objective, immutable, and enduring?
And well, it's appropriate that you started where you started in the scriptures in the first segment, because Paul reminds us as well in Romans. He says that they show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience bearing witness, and their thoughts alternately accusing or also defending them. So the law of God has been written in man's hearts from the beginning, and all men, not just Israel in the Old Testament, New Testament, Gentiles and Jews. And so you have the believer who understands that, but then you have the unbeliever who has that yearning for freedom, for truth, for purpose, like you were explaining in the first segment. So that cannot be quenched. That's why communism is so evil. It's so anti-God, right? It's atheist at its core. We desire, and the men, I'm so grateful that the men are leading in that, because women are made to help and follow. And that's not degrading. That is glorious. And so if men start leading, young men start leading in pursuing righteousness, because God has put that in them and is being stirred up, women will follow.
You think it'll be sufficient to overcome the feminization propaganda that a lot of young American women have been subjected to?
I think the power of God is what we need to rely on. I think it wasn't the stone that David used to kill the enemy. It was the power of God that killed the enemy, the giant. So yes, God can do that.
See why I married this woman? Thank you. That is very helpful for me, and I pray it's also helpful for our audience here. You've been listening to the Hamilton Corner. Stay tuned, because we're going there in 2026, y'all. Rock with us.